Hi there, BookTube. This is one of those catchy-uppy videos, which is going to be not too terribly scripted. I've got some quick point notes, but otherwise I'm just going to try and wing it. You know that always makes me a little nervous, but I gotta get braver, don't I? I gotta get braver. And I'm going to start by talking about War and Peace, because that's been my ongoing project, to read that book in a year by reading a chapter a day. First of all, I have to tell on myself. What I'm finding is that my chapter a day is kind of evolving into more like a little reading session every week to read all the chapters. And I'm not worried about it. I don't really care how it happens. It's happening. I'm still keeping up with my schedule. I'm still filling in that spreadsheet. And so I'm keeping track of the dates. I know that I'm on track and still going strong. So just to prove it, we will show you our bookmark now, which currently sits at page 714. So we are over halfway. It is 1812 and Napoleon has crossed the River Niemen. It's all on. War is starting. And what we don't know yet is how war is going to affect those who are living in Moscow and St. Petersburg. We are mostly hanging around with the Tsar and the Russian army, and also a little bit in Napoleon's camp, which is currently in the city of what is now Vilnius, but is, I think, then was called, there we go, no notes. I don't have all those things prepared, and my brain will not hang on to that kind of information. But at any rate, you're with the armies, and I think what is funny, and it is funny, you might think, how on earth can a story of the beginning of war be funny? What is funny is that Tolstoy is taking a good hard look at the politics within the Russian army. And this is something that Adam Zamoyski, in his book about the War of 1812, commented on, that in the beginning, at the point that Napoleon had crossed into Russian territory, the Tsar was with his army, but he wasn't commander-in-chief. He hadn't taken that title. And yet, obviously, if the head of state, and an autocratic head at that, is with his army, who else is going to be in charge? And that was the problem, was that for the Russians in that stage of the war, there was nobody in charge. And so what you got was a sort of a boiling pot of political factionism. And there's a whole chapter in which Tolstoy simply tells you about all the different factions within the army. I think he comes up with 13 different parties with their different interests, and it's horrible. It makes it sound like an absolute snarly mess. And you think, how is that army going to make any kind of decision? Any decision they make will be kind of random, and probably won't know until the moment what gets done. And I thought, wow, I think Napoleon's army, in spite all the hell that it would have gone through just to get as far as it had, because it would have lost a lot of men and horses just getting to Russian territory. Then we get even worse yet to come. And yet I think there was a more defined chain of command, and Napoleon at that point was still fairly close to his troops in terms of distance, so he could communicate with his commanders better. So yeah, the book is still absolutely fascinating. I can't recommend it too much if you're frightened of classic 19th century fiction. Tolstoy is a very friendly writer in translation. Certainly this translation is very good. It reads like a novel. I do not find, and I say reads also like a more popular novel. Tolstoy is not trying to be literary in any sense. He's trying to tell you a lot. He's trying to tell you a very big story. I think if he were to write War and Peace now, it would have been a trilogy. I mean, that it is divided into books, and probably it was published in different volumes. And I think maybe people, if you saw it like that and said, this is just a big trilogy, a saga, an expansive saga that covers the lives of mainly wealthy people. And I just think it's much more popular, friendly, approachable reading. And I think most people are really just intimidated by it's an old book and it's a big book. But I could think of so many other 19th century books that are tougher to read. Well, Middlemarch for one, but tougher to read than Tolstoy. Tolstoy, actually, I find a very straightforward prose style to read in translation. So yeah, I encourage anybody, if they're thinking of trying a 19th century novel, but you think, oh, what should I go for? What should I go for? And for goodness sake, don't this is driving me nuts, as people want to do the classics when they've never done them before, and they get this horrendous TBR list. And I think, just a second, just slow down. These books are heavy on the brain. Maybe pick a couple at first and just see how you go with them. And I would definitely recommend Tolstoy. There are others that I'd recommend, but I think if I was going to say reading that pulls you along nicely and is easy to read and will remind you more of modern writing, I'd say, well, Tolstoy in translation, definitely. And while we're on the subject of TBR lists, I'm going to show you a little slide of all my reading stats for what I call the year so far. We know my new reading project actually started on the 1st of November, so I'm doing a weird thing of going from 1st of November 2024 to 31st of December 2025, but never mind, it's only a couple more months. And so you can see here that I had a page goal rather than a book goal. So my page goal, 18,000 pages. Right now, we are sitting at 10,500 pages read. That's 58% of the pages done, which, given that we're at about 7 months coming up, is absolutely right. I've read 30 books. I did keep a note of just how many books am I finishing, and I finished 30, which is still not far behind where I would be had I decided to do a reading goal by number of books, because I probably would have said 4 books a month. And so in 7 months, that would have been 28 books. So I think, of course, are we coming up to month 8 now? Let's see, it's end of June, so 6, yeah. Coming up to the end of month 8. So technically speaking, by the end of month 8, it should have been 32 books. But I think I probably will manage to finish 2 more books before June ends. So I feel that I'll be on course, again, to read 4 books a month, even though, as you can see here, I'm reading some big, heavy books, and I'm going to start another one shortly. I'm really looking at Keith Thomas's Religion and the Decline of Magic, the first big book in the list there. It's one I've wanted to get to. It was published in 1971, so it's a well-known work about how English thinking in terms of belief moved beyond magic into sort of Catholic Christianity, and how that paved the way for Protestant Christianity, and then subsequently paved the way for the Enlightenment. It's a fascinating study of how thinking, one line of thinking inevitably led to another, which inevitably led to another. So I would like to go back and finish that book, because I didn't quite get through it the first time I started it. I also want to talk about my winning titles TBR. You remember that got set back in July last year. I set myself 18 books, and I pulled them all out of my bookshelf, so they're all books I own, and I knew that I had chosen them purely because they had a fascinating title, or a title that appealed to me in some way. Well, where we are now, we have read 11 of those 18 books, so it's good. We're on course. We might have to pick up the pace a little bit if we want to finish those 18 by the end of 2025. But I'm not too worried. If I go a month over or something, or 2 months over in order to finish that TBR, that doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is that I make steady progress through it. I don't just abandon it. That to me is what TBRs are for. You set a deadline because you want to work at a reasonable pace toward the end of the TBR, something that makes you feel like you're accomplishing it. But you don't want to beat yourself up if you've still got a book or 2 to read by the end of that deadline period. Because if that's all you've got, you've done really well. You've obviously worked really well through that list. That's how I regard it anyway. So I feel we're doing really well with this one. And now I want to talk about 3 books that I bought. This would be last month in May. I happened to be up in West Bridgford, which is a suburb of Nottingham. The cricket ground is there, right? We follow Nottinghamshire County Cricket Club, myself and the person who watches television. But we were up there. West Bridgford is a very lovely neighborhood. You know it's a lovely neighborhood with a lot of money if there's a bookstore in the suburbs. There is a Waterstones in West Bridgford. So we popped in, and I couldn't help it. There were a couple of things on my mind that I wanted to look at. I had watched a video by Nick at Dr. Cranky Pants Reads, and it was talking about, our ability to read and concentrate and what is maybe undermining it. And he went through a number of books, one of which I'd read. I'd read The Shallows by Nicholas Carr. That was lent to me by the MK Dons fan and read. And Nick said, here's a more recent book than The Shallows that you might want to read. And so what he got me buying, because I just thought, I need to read one of these books. So he got me buying Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. And this one, is a little bit more recent. I think it's 2022 it was published. So I think Nicholas Carr's book was 2010. So this has more up-to-date research, particularly on not just how technology is affecting our ability to concentrate, although he does cover that in a great deal of detail, but also things like our sleeping patterns, what we eat, how much stress we're under, and pollution, how all these factors are combining, and they're making it very difficult for people to focus and concentrate. And then he starts to talk about whether there are possible solutions that can we change this in a global fashion? Can we begin to put pressure on the technology businesses in particular to help us, because technology can be used for anything. It can undermine our concentration and our focus as it is designed to do now, or he said it could be turned around and used to augment and help us gain focus and power of concentration. And so I'm only, as you can see, we're just over halfway. So he's on the sort of solutions bit, solution suggestions. So I'm evaluating those, but it's a fascinating book. Thank you, Nick, if you're watching. Thank you. And while we're on the subject of recommendations, I should also shout out to Dan at Redunculous, because his video about Jack Kerouac and what he loved about Kerouac and what he loved about the different books that Kerouac had written gave me more knowledge about Kerouac than I had. To be honest, I've only read On the Road. That was some time ago. And I'm thinking I might like to reread it, because I think, well, I'm older now, and a lot of books they're striking me different. I'm picking up books and rereading them and going, is this the same book I read 25 years ago? Because it seems different somehow. And I think, no, it's the same book. Guess what's changed? So I thought to myself, well, if that's true, and Dan's enthusiasm for Kerouac's writing was clear, I thought, why don't I give the guy another chance? Why don't I try a different book? Maybe I was too early to write him off. We should give this more time. So the only Jack Kerouac that was available in that branch of Waterstones was the Dharma Bums. So I thought, okay, buy it, read it. So there you go, Dan. We're going to be giving the guy another chance because of your enthusiasm. And the third book I bought isn't one that was anybody's personal recommendation, but just a title that I keep seeing over and over again. The author I keep seeing on YouTube. They've been doing a lot of videos regarding the move to conservative far-right politics and the causes, the implications, and perhaps the way forward. And that is Judith Butler. So I'm reading or want to read Who's Afraid of Gender. This is their performative theory of gender that they wrote about in the 1980s. And so it's a work that I really would like to get to know. They're currently a distinguished professor in the graduate school at the University of California. And as I say, they've been very vocal on social media. But when I say very vocal, Butler has this lovely, measured, calm style of delivering what they have to say. And I find that really it's such a contrast to all the shouting and craziness. And I think that's really what has attracted me to their writing. Okay, everybody, that's as much as I'm going to do. I had thought, I'll do a tag as well. But, it's really hot today. I think I've mentioned that. I filmed Middlemarch Meditation, and it's getting up into the early 30s right now. And with all these lights that I have on to give me good light here in this room, I just think I really wouldn't mind turning them off, guys, and doing something a bit more relaxing. So if you bear with, you will get a tag video. I'm filming those and piling them up. I've got loads of tags ready to go at the touch of an editing button or two. And so I will make those available later on. At any rate, thanks for watching, everybody. Good to catch up with you again, and I hope your reading is going really well. Take care until we see each other again. Bye-bye.